Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to see is true. The names of the individuals involved have been changed. While this is a slightly dramatized version of events, scenes of the actual equipment and aftermath are featured. This presentation is intended to serve as a cautionary tale. This is the hobby, model railroading. The level of realism one can achieve in any scale of model railroad is directly proportional to the amount of time one is willing to spend creating the scene. Some details are more important to certain modelers than others. Some modelers want little more than for the overall look to be right. Other modelers seek perfection, wanting everything to be exactly as it is on the prototype. This can range from the tiniest details to the lengths of one's trains. Try as one might, however, even the best model railroaders cannot scale down the laws of physics. If one fails to take that into consideration, one may end up as this, a case file. Our person of interest is known to his friends as Dimitri. Dimitri's modeling preferences are varied. He has models of trains from the US, UK, and Switzerland. In the winter of 2024, Dimitri had purchased a Broadway Limited Imports brass hybrid Union Pacific early Challenger-type locomotive. This was a fine model, with a manufacturer's suggested retail price of $900. With some help from another club member, the Paragon 4 decoder aboard the locomotive was exchanged for an ESU LokeSound 5 decoder and loaded with a set of Union Pacific Big Boy sounds. For several weeks, Dimitri ran the locomotive all around the club layout. The Challenger proved itself to be a very capable puller, not balking at any load Dimitri could throw at it, despite the 4% grade found on the layout's main line. About the only complaint Dimitri had was that while the boiler and engine were die-cast, the tender was a much lighter plastic. Having gotten his start in model railroading with Swiss prototypes, Dimitri wanted to run model trains of similar length to their real-life counterparts. For Swiss models, this is usually only a matter of whether one can afford to purchase a full 9-car passenger consist. For American prototypes, however, 60 and 70-car freight trains in miniature present unique problems. Generally speaking, this particular model railroad club's train length limit for open houses and run nights is about 12 40-foot freight cars. This is to allow one's train to fit into any siding on the railroad and make meeting another train at a passing siding as simple as possible. Given the opportunity, Dimitri would put more than that behind his engine, sometimes to see if the locomotive could handle it, other times because he knew the engine would pull it. He was careful to do so in ways that did not disrupt other members' operations. Every year in December, the club has a holiday social. It's a run night, punctuated by a special short business meeting and refreshments. Dimitri had his Challenger on the layout and was running up and down the mountain all night. As the club members went home and as the traffic on the layout settled to a trickle, Dimitri began to load test his engine again. He took several trips up and down the mountain with progressively longer and longer trains. By this point in the evening, it was getting late and maybe a half dozen members were still at the club. Of those still present, Dimitri was the only one running a train. Everyone else was scattered around the layout room engaged in conversation. Dimitri ran his Challenger to the end of the main line and turned around in Asheville. He remained there for a time. To the extent the other members noticed this, they heard Dimitri switching and moving his locomotive back and forth. No one had a clear view of what he was up to. After some 20 minutes or so, Dimitri said, "Hey, watch that tunnel portal," and motioned to the tunnel portal at the west end of the town of Swannanoa, where the tracks from Asheville emerge. A few moments later, the Challenger emerged, pulling a freight train. Most of the eyes in the layout room watched as the Challenger continued to pull more and more cars out of the tunnel. Swannanoa loops around a corner of the room and crosses a bridge leading to the only major uphill climb an eastbound train, such as this, would encounter. As the locomotive entered the loop, the members expected to see a caboose, but only saw more and more rolling stock. The Challenger began to cross the bridge, but the rear of the train was not in sight yet. The members present were aghast as the increasingly long train marched across the bridge, still with no end in sight. The locomotive began to navigate the right-hand curve that is also the start of the uphill climb. Incredulity turned to horror as everyone watched the Challenger roll over to its right side and off the bridge. The drop from inside that curve is approximately 10 feet to the concrete floor below. The whole layout was built elevated, and that location is one of the few places where the highest levels of track has an unobstructed path all the way down. The collective gasp of the members who saw the engine go over was immediately followed by a sickening thump, and several members rushed to the spot below the bridge to assess the damage. The tender was found first, mostly intact, but the lead truck had shattered, and fragments were scattered all over. Initially, the members couldn't find the locomotive itself. After a couple minutes, it was located beneath the stairs leading up to the platform behind the bridge. A member pulled it from under the stairs, and several members inspected it. The cab had taken the brunt of the hit, no doubt about it. Several detail parts were deformed, a front engine unit's steam pipe had broken off completely, and one of the two engine units was rolling free, indicating something was wrong internally. The pieces were picked up and the locomotive went immediately to the club workbench. The cab was removed, and the engine was opened up. A drive shaft had popped out of place. Other inspections were carried out, and after the drive shaft was popped back in place, the members found no other serious mechanical defects. 30 minutes after the fall, the engine was loosely reassembled with the tender leaning on the drawbar and placed on the track. The locomotive moved again under its own power. Another member went to the Asheville platform to stow the train away, and was shocked to find the caboose still in the Asheville yard as the rest of the train was wrapped all the way around Swannanoa. The member disassembled the train in cuts of 10 cars to find out how many freight cars were in it. The grand total? 82. Nearly 7 times the recommended train length for the layout. The club members discussed what had caused the derailment, but it became obvious early on that the tender was not heavy enough to take the strain of 80 cars on a curve going uphill. The pull of the locomotive against the weight of the 80 cars overcame the tender's weight and pulled it sideways, starting it rolling off the track, which took the engine with it. A classic string line derailment. Once everything was more or less settled for the night, the Challenger was boxed up, and the members went home. The member who had originally installed the Loc Sound decoder in the Challenger had ridden his bicycle to the club that evening, expecting to leave at a decent hour. With all the excitement, he ended up riding his bicycle the full half-hour trip home around 2 in the morning. The members advised Dimitri to send the locomotive back to Broadway Limited Imports for repair, which he did. BLI initially said they could repair it, but later offered to replace the locomotive outright. Some months later, Dimitri received his replacement locomotive with a Paragon 4 decoder on board. Exactly what became of the Loc Sound that was aboard the first Challenger is unknown. Dimitri may have been unclear in his letter sent with the engine as to whether he wanted that decoder back. We can scale down buildings, we can scale down track, and we can scale down trains. The laws of physics, however, remain constant no matter the scale. It is absolutely possible to run long model trains, but it takes planning, careful attention to each car, speed-matched locomotives, and gentle track. While it is possible to just throw a long train on a layout without much preparation, the outcome may not be what you hoped for. Most layouts are designed and tested for a specific operating envelope. Exceed it at your own equipment's risk. That's the lesson of the case file of the Challenger's fall. Case closed.